Good afternoon. It's Sandra Pike from Royal LePage Atlantic and the Pike Group. And today I would thought to bring two gentlemen on just to talk about, how the fire that's happening out in Westwood Hills and Tantallon area, how it's affecting the real estate market and where possibly we can go after this. So joining me today is Matt Honsberger, president of Royal LePage Atlantic, and Ben Young, CEO of Southwest Properties. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Afternoon, Miss Pike.
Oh, thank you. Matt, you've been around the industry a long time and, we've never seen anything like this. How has the fire impacted real estate?
You're right. We've seen an awful lot over the last few years, but this is a new one again, in terms of the market and the industry trying to react to a situation that's evolving pretty quickly. Undoubtedly, we've seen a little bit of a pause in what's going on the Halifax side of the bridge here with respect to transactions going through. People are just kind of, whenever there's any kind of, let's call it, lack of confidence or a little bit of an unsettling moment, it's hard to make a big financial decision there. So that area that's been affected by the fires here is a pretty big area right now, and quite a popular area for people to be moving in. So we've certainly seen a lot of I would say this week has been a slower week because people are distracted by what's going on there. And again, if you were thinking about moving into that area, it might have caused you to take a moment to just kind of pause and say, oh, well, let's just see how all this plays out, right? And then there's a domino effect on the rest of the industry based upon that. So certainly seeing a bit of a slowdown this week because of that, which is 100% understandable.
So has anybody at our office, had clients that have been impacted, or have you seen any types of scenarios that would have come up at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I had one call on Monday, sort of the day after this all started. An agent of ours has a client who is selling their home in the affected area and moving into another home in the affected area. Thankfully, at this point, it doesn't seem like either of the two homes have been harmed by the fire at all. But the person who was purchasing the one that they were selling to unlock their ability to go buy the other one decided not to buy their home. They still had the right to decide to back away from that deal. So now this person needs to think about what they do with the home that they're trying to sell. Do they come back on the market right away? Do they go to some neighbors who they know very well personally and say, I'm trying to sell my house, so yours has been negatively affected. Do you want to buy that? Lots of different, scenarios kind of running through, some of which are business scenarios, some of which are moral scenarios. And our agent is trying to help navigate them through that. And he's doing an expert job of that right now. But those are the kinds of things that come up when you're trying to advise someone in a weird time like this has been. So you're trying to manage the emotions of all of that while also trying to be the business advisor for people.
Ben, on the construction side of things, has it impacted at all, or you're just steady go?
No, I from a construction standpoint, so we live in the multi-res world. We're not in a position to rebuild the single family homes that people have lost, which is, it's a horrible situation. I think everybody feels for those families that are out there. So from our end, on the construction standpoint, it doesn't have an impact. From an availability standpoint, it does, and it hasn't surfaced yet, but it will surface pretty soon. So I think right now everybody's in kind of crisis mode. They've either been displaced from their homes, they need to find a place to live. They've gone to family or friends. Some people have reached out and managed to get hotel rooms, which are all booked now. So the short term has been solved, but the long term will flush itself out. And that's where I think our industry will start to feel it, because people will be reaching out. Unfortunately, there's zero vacancy. Like, we have a portfolio of over 1,600 doors. We have zero vacancy right now. So I'm, like a lot of business leaders, probably asking the question, what can we do in a situation like this? Because the people that are going to be impacted the most are the ones that have lost their homes. We've all been impacted at different levels, but the ones that have lost their homes, I think, are in for a really rough ride. I feel horrible for them, and hopefully everybody's asking themselves the same question: what can we do? So we're going to have to try and somehow get creative. People are going to need to bridge their housing requirements over the next 12 months, which is probably the time it's going to take to recover. So I'm just trying to look at it from our end to see if, what can be done from our end to help those people when they need the help the most, which is when they start to rebuild their lives.
So let's say it could take anywhere from, depending on the how you were impacted with the fire, whether you've lost your home, which is so unfortunate, or you have fire damage. It could take 3 months, it could take 3 years. So given that we are in a housing crisis here, we have a limited amount of homes, where do you, Matt, where do you see us moving forward to tomorrow? Like, what can people do? Like, if it took, some builders during the pandemic to build a home in 12 to 18 months, we have land shortage supply. So what are your thoughts? What's our next step forward?
Yeah, it's a real tough thing to figure out for the 200 people, to Ben's point, who are, they're actually displaced from their homes, right? And I feel deeply for those people as well, and certainly, can't even empathize with what they're going through because I've never been through anything like that. Those people, to Ben's point, have a very long road to hoe to get back here, and they're going to likely have a couple of very difficult financial decisions to make. In the short term, there's this short-term need for alternative accommodations, and I've seen different organizations stepping up at this point. Just talking to one of the folks in our office who is with her family down at Dalhousie, and in a kind of a short-term residence accommodation down there. You've got people who are in hotels, living in people's basements, that kind of thing, that, they kind of are aware that as long as nothing changes, I'm going to weather this for a couple of weeks. But for the people who have to rebuild their homes, there's a couple of different pressures that I think immediately come up. The first is obviously the lack of available tradespeople. Your disaster restoration companies like ServiceMaster and First On Site and those kinds of people, they're not staffed with a whole cadre of tradespeople. Their job is to go out and source those tradespeople, and of course, those tradespeople are going to be in high demand because of the housing shortage we have already. So kind of going to find them is really difficult here. I think that you're going to see the emergence of a lot of secondary dwelling units all of a sudden becoming housing solutions for people as we go forward. So I'm, pleased that at least we've had a little bit of runway in that respect to get some of those built. One of the gals in our office is just around the corner from finishing sort of a 2-bedroom unit in her backyard. And she's already had some rental inquiries from people who feel like they're going to be permanently displaced from their home out in Tantallon. So, those are the kinds of things that I think will be the solution. And unfortunately, it means that people's lives are going to be kind of on hold for a year when it comes to their housing, or maybe more. To your point, it might be a year, 2 years by the time the whole thing gets sorted out, insurance gets paid out, and tradespeople get hired to rebuild houses. But those kinds of things are things that I would say the city can make a little bit easier for people as well. If the municipality is looking to try and help, it's let's relax the regulations around these people going to find alternative housing in the city somewhere. So I think that's going to be reasonable.
Absolutely. Ben, you and I talked about this in great length over the past few days. What do you think the city could do to help alleviate what people are going to be faced with when they find out, if their home has been, one of the ones that have been burnt?
So yeah, the city can play a role, but everybody has to play a role in this. This isn't going to be solved by one group. So this is a bit of a build on Matt's comments, which I would agree with. I think people are going to have to get creative. In times like this, you need to get creative. So two components to rebuild. There's a few components to rebuild those homes. One, the land availability, that will not be an issue here. The lots are there. So unfortunately, people have lost their homes, but the lots are approved. They're ready to be built on. So now the city has to be really fast at approving building permits. Now you need to fill that trade issue, which is how do I get people in to rebuild on those lots? And I would, if it were me, somebody should, and I'm not sure who it is, but somebody should go to the Nova Scotia Home Builders Association and say, get your members together, start to circle the wagons. Like there's some people out there that in the past maybe didn't have homes, but they could build homes. Who are those members? Make sure that the people that are calling, looking for contacts, like who do I call to build a house, get a contractor. Nova Scotia Home Builders Association could get out in front of that. I'd be looking to the modular home sector as well. and
Mhm.
say, okay, we've got companies in New Brunswick, how quickly can you ramp up? It's a different set of supply chain subcontractors that they could tap into. So I just think there's that, yes, the city will play a role in it, but I think it's much broader than that. I think if we just look towards one government entity, we are missing the opportunity. This is the time to somebody put their thinking cap on. Nova Scotia Home Builders, modular home, city's got to approve permits fast, like really fast. These have to be a priority. I would say the other thing the city could do and the province could do, what fees are there that they can waive to help these people? Like, I think even with insurance, I don't think you ever end up whole. So I think there's going to be out of pocket costs. So waive your building permit fees for those people. And I would say this is all needs based as well. So not to be too harsh, but there are people that are impacted differently. There's some people that are, have had the devastation of losing a home, but financially they can deal with it. And there's others that are going to be impacted, quite negatively. They may not be able to get back in the house without assistance. And in those situations, on a means-based test, I think it would be incumbent on the provincial entities that are charging fees to put the new home up, whether it's HST or it's building permits or whatever it is, that they should consider waiving those for those people and try and get them back on their feet. That's a way that they could really help out. So, speed and money will solve a lot of problems, but the city's not alone in it. I do think they're one partner, and the mayor's been front and center trying to get out in front of it and talk about. And I think government in general does a pretty good job in situations like this to try and rally around and look for solutions. Sometimes they need ideas from the private sector like ourselves to say, have you considered, and let them run with it. So hopefully they'll be looking at those options.
Yeah, and I would just sort of weigh in as well that the banking sector could play a role here as well. Like these people, it's May 31st today. People are going to have their mortgage payments coming out tomorrow, right? On they can't live anymore. So a deferral on that while they get short-term accommodations in place, just because they're going to need cash, right? The average person is not walking around with a huge savings deposit amount, right? And so the idea of going to get a short-term rental, I know that if I was, coming to look for a short-term rental, I'm going to have to put some money down as a deposit. I'm going to have to put some money down as, for first and last, maybe something like that. Like, I'm going to need access to the cash to be able to do it. And even though insurance money is coming to solve the problem right now, I'm going to need to be able to access that. So if the banking sector steps up and says, hey, listen, we've got a deferral program for 3 months, it's not, don't pay your mortgage. It's, we're just going to give you a holiday for a couple of months and tack that on to the end of your mortgage. I think that'd be helpful.
When the claim comes in, they can pay it and off they go. One of the things the city could do immediately, which I should have mentioned, is they should take the property tax down to zero for those homes that have been destroyed. That's immediate. So the property tax bill should be zero effective the day that it went, and they should stop charging them. That's another thing that can be lifted, because quite frankly, the properties are of no value right now. And the insurance company plays a big role in this. They've got to get in and do their assessments and appraisals and process claims quickly. Like that's a big piece of this. How quickly can they get in and do what's required on their end to satisfy themselves to pay the claims and that? So big piece, a lot of players here at the table.
Yeah, absolutely. There are, but you've talked about it or you've seen it on social media, how people are, Nova Scotia strong and what happened during Portapic, and so many people are extending such kindness to what's been happening to people who are victims of a fire. And I just think it's absolutely incredible how people here in HRM are extending their support, because they certainly need it at this time. Any last comments there, Ben?
Yeah, so we talk about, what is apparent, I think, is the people that have lost their homes. So we spend a lot of time talking about them, which those are the ones that are obviously impacted the most. Then there are the people that are displaced, and you don't spend as much time talking about them, but we should, you have to pay attention to that. I know at our company, and I'm sure most companies are doing it, like we're reaching out. I've reached out personally to people that have been just displaced to say, are you okay? Is there anything we can do for you? Some people saying I'm having a hard time getting in the office. Don't worry about coming in the office. Like, take care of yourself. And then it's the things that you don't see, like what's under the surface. Like people are, and make sure you have something in place for whether it's a family member or it's a friend or it's somebody that you work with. And again, I take it back to the business environment, is that, we've reached out with correspondence so that the people that are worried about things are stressed. Like, am I next? Am I going to be evacuated? There's a lot of things that we don't think about that are going on in people's heads right now. And I think we need to pay attention to that as well. It's, there's a lot of people impacted, not just the ones that have lost their homes or have been displaced. There's a lot of people going through a lot of stress, just worried about what's next.
And yourself, Matt, any final thoughts for today?
Yeah, there's I have been caused by a couple of people in our office to remember that there's actually 2 fires going on here as well, right? And you know, we're in HRM, the 3 of us sitting here in HRM, and we have some folks down on the South Shore who are dealing with a significant issue as well. So, you know, there is going to be a tremendous impact on a whole bunch of resources over the next little while. Ben talked about the speed that insurance agents are going to have to get out, or underwriters, and get out and deal with you know, these problems. Adjusters, I mean, sorry, not underwriters, deal with these issues. And you know, all of us exhibiting some patience with each other over the next little while is such an important thing. Ben, you know, you're talking about it with employees, and I feel the exact same way, that you know, people don't have clothes to come into work with. So, you know, if they're out replacing their shirts because that's what they can get from the Gap, then no problem. We can Zoom, because all I need to see is your shirt anyway. So that's fine. And just all of us showing the patience that we have over the last few years. We've been thrown an awful lot of stuff in this province over the last few years. The world has, but we had a couple of extra things now tacked onto it. And so that level of patience is going to go a long way here as we try and work through this. So
Absolutely.
You know, extending any offer of help that we can offer as people and as an organization to anyone that we can. So.
Well, gentlemen, thank you both for your time today. Certainly appreciate your insights on this topic.
Thank you. Good to
All
see
the
you.
best.
Yes.
Cheers.